I do have one, I think, obvious question that maybe I should have asked at the beginning. I think anyone watching this would want me to ask you, which is, in your time working as an intel analyst, have you heard about like UAPs behind the scene, or know anything about, like, is, because that seems to be this big thing behind the scenes. Like, is that your experience as well?
Yeah, so it's basically like I obviously I don't dive into details or anything, but guys talk at work. It's just like any other job. Guys
Yeah,
have interests outside of work, and
sure.
people talk about things. So yeah, I've had conversations with people, and I can tell you right now, there are people that believe, and there are people that think just like me. Just because you do a job at a certain level doesn't mean that the things that you say is just automatically like, okay, well, that justifies it, it's credible, like it's real.
Yeah.
Like I've seen men in high ranks state that they believe in this subject wholeheartedly because of experiences they've had outside of their job.
Sure.
And then I've seen people be skeptical and just shoo it off like it's a bunch of crazy nonsense. So yeah, people, I mean, it's just like any other thing. That's what I've been trying to get people to understand. That just because people work in certain facets in the intel community or with the Department of Defense or the US, the government, that doesn't mean that people aren't prone to conspiracy theories and other lines of thinking. It's all the same. But I will tell you this, what you don't do is you go looking for those on classified servers. You don't go looking up that kind of stuff because that's not what the government's paying you to do. They're
Yeah.
paying you to do a job, and
Yeah.
you do that job. You have access to information, a lot of information, but you definitely don't want to get caught doing those things. And to me, that explains some of the things that certain personalities in this subject may have not been honest about and why they've walked away from what they do or how they left the intel community because there's more there than I think most people will realize and that being led on to believe.
Sure. I mean, how many, I guess this is going to be a pretty broad question, but like, how many people are in the intel community that work for the American government? Are we talking tens of thousands? Are we talking
Well,
like,
the intel, I mean, you can look online. There's at least nine different intel agencies alone, and then you have
oh, wow.
you have each branch of the military have their own, they work together, joint, and have their own intelligence. So the
Yeah.
intelligence field as a whole is a pretty massive thing, but at the same time, and you'll hear people that ever work in the community, it's also seen as a small community because in the intel world, you can work doing one thing and somebody else does another, but your product together, the information that different people bring together doing different disciplines of the job, form the intel product. So you end up working with a lot of people. And so it's seen as a small world, a small intel world.
Okay.
But there's quite a bit that goes into it. And so I kind of leave it at that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just there's a lot that goes into it.
Sure. Well, I think that there's, I think some people in the UFO community just assume there's like just 10 people that know, in the intel community. And if one person
But
comes out,
nope,
it's like, oh, I mean, he's the intel community. Look at him. He came out.
right.
He is the intel community. It's like, wait a second. That's like, there's a lot of people there. What exactly does that mean? I think you made a good point about, just because you have a certain position and then you have a belief, doesn't mean that that belief is now true because you hold this position in, the government. I mean, a great example would be John F. Kennedy being a Catholic. Oh, does that mean God's real because he believes, right? Does that make sense? Like,
Right. Yeah.
that doesn't mean
Right.
God's real. Well, he's president. It must mean he's right about God. Wait a second. It's just a belief that he holds, right? People have personal beliefs, no matter what that may be. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great distinction. I don't know if I've ever thought about it that way. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, that's a great way to
I'll
put
give
that.
I'll give an example, right? And I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but there was a while at work, I was talking to my security officer, And we were talking about the subjects of UFOs, UAP, because guys at work talk. This is what we do.
Sure.
Um, and this wasn't behind, this wasn't in closed setting or like a skiff or anything. So a very high ranking individual came in, um, and without missing a beat, the security officer is like, "Sir," he's like, "what's your take on UFOs, UAP?" And without missing a beat, he was like, "Oh, I believe in them." He's like, "I had an experience and I saw something, at my house, years ago." And, he didn't go into detail, but he was like, "I saw enough where I think there's something out there for sure." Now, if he comes out to the public based off his rank and he says that, you better believe that people are automatically going to be like, "Yep, he's telling the truth. He's credible because of the position he holds."
Sure.
But to show that he gave no evidence of it, it's just a story, that he didn't even really go into. I can't just take his word for it because of the position and his rank and his title. I can't do that. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So just to put it out there, that shows that the conversation takes place. This isn't like, it's not as big of a stigma as people say. The problem is when you go looking for it in classified settings and you start overstepping your bounds,
Sure.
then you're gonna kind of paint your, like, they can investigate you for stuff like that. And like I said, I think that's a little bit in play on some of these people in this community.